All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're going to have a conversation about virtual learning. My name is Michael Mangrum, and this is.
This is Charlie Garcia. You'll see Juan Garcia down there. It's Juan Carlos. Call me Charlie.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
All right. So, just a little bit on our background. Uh, I'm a teacher in Fort Worth ISD. I teach fifth grade. I teach in a bilingual classroom. This is a second career for me, and I really love what I do, enjoy it, and just trying to get my
Mm.
build my understanding of the teaching profession and sharing what I know and what I'm learning with everyone out there.
Same here with this being a second career. It's one that I have grown to love. It is it's an art. Teaching is an art, and it's one that we continue to develop. And um, the more I think about it, the more I think we need to have fun with what we're doing. At the end of the day, we work with kids, and everything that we do needs to be fun in order to engage our students, especially given the current scenario with the pandemic, people being quarantined, not having the opportunity for these kids not having the opportunity to engage with their peers, to have fun, to have recess, to socialize the way that they're used to doing in our school setting. So the reason I'm here is to support our families, support parents, support kids. We're asking a lot of these kids and of these parents. So we're here to collaborate and to help.
Right, and I think that's we picked our topic for this first conversation, just about virtual learning. Obviously, that's a big touch point right now. With some schools being delayed and all the political controversy that's been generated. But it is a reality. We are going to virtual instruction. We've been in virtual instruction, and we're going to continue in virtual instruction for the time being. So what we'd like to do is just have a little conversation about virtual instruction and virtual learning and some of our experiences and how that's worked out with people. So the first question as we prepared for this that we thought we'd like to address is what are the things that have gone well for us? And I'll let Charlie start. What are
Sure,
some
thank
things that have gone well for you in the virtual classroom? What's worked?
thank you, Michael. Something that has worked for me, and I have some notes here. Thank you for sending those questions out earlier. Um, so
Thank
what has worked
you.
what has worked really well for me and that I enjoy doing is and working with is Zoom. These
Yeah.
Zoom recordings are gold. Um, they're fun to do. They're it's I enjoy the screen sharing and some of the other functionality of the application. It makes it really easy to teach because in this virtual setting, for me, it's an invaluable tool to be able to share my screen and to be able to notate on my screen, especially teaching math. I had word problems on there. We use an acronym, which is STEPS, rules. Read every question or read the problem twice, underline important information, look at every option when we have multiple choice, eliminate answers that are incorrect, and then select your correct answer. So I was able to not only speak what I'm doing, but I was also able to show visually what I was doing because I was able to share my screen. So what I'm doing, I'm able to show just the way I'm able to do in a classroom. I can do on my computer screen with the use of the Zoom app. Now, something else that I love about Zoom is the small group. Being able to work with a small group. For me, that works a lot better than trying to facilitate something with the entire class. When we all know there are going to be students, and that's okay. It's part of the environment of in education. There will be students who require more attention, who maybe need more help, whatever the case may be, behavior issue, whatever it may be. There will be circumstances that arise that take away from the focus of what the lesson is. So grouping is extremely important. Heterogeneous and homogeneous grouping, with the use of assessment, pre-assessment to determine which grouping each student is going to best be a part of, and how we're going to select that, how we're going to determine which group that they're in. So let me back up a little bit. Creating groups and then inviting groups at different times for direct instruction
Okay.
on Zoom live. That was really effective for me.
So it sounds like you were able to replicate a lot of what you do, or a lot of what an effective teacher should do in the classroom.
Mhm.
Group instruction, small group instruction, and some one-on-one instruction. How would you go about, how would you work with the students as far as getting them to the the Zoom room in at their appointed time? How would you coordinate? What were the logistics of running that?
So that involved communication through the use of Google Classroom.
Okay.
My students loved it. These were third graders. And so we did team teaching, and I taught math for the grade level. We had somebody doing literacy and somebody doing science and social studies. They really were just all about it. They loved that interaction, that time, an opportunity to see one another on the app. They liked that. Whenever we log in, the first thing that we did is we gave them some time to interact. So we
Okay.
put out maybe a fun question, or just gave everyone an opportunity to contribute to begin the discussion before we went into any kind of curriculum.
Okay.
So
And
it was engaging. So by doing that, we established and created a platform, a place for these kids to come and still have that interaction before we got into the business of teaching.
yeah, and I agree. I think one of the things that I noticed in my classroom is that with a little bit of planning, uh, I was able to get the kids engaged and keep them engaged.
Absolutely.
One of the things, excuse me, one of the things that I found was that um, like my turnaround time had to be a lot quicker in the virtual classroom as compared to the physical classroom. And I guess what I mean is, like, when I would be talking to somebody or working with a group of kids, you know, Ronaldo, if you could read this problem. Well, in the classroom that works, read the problem, because you're walking around, you're checking people, making sure people are paying attention. I found that in a virtual classroom, when I would give somebody, I don't know, 4 or 5 sentences to read, the attention span of the class, the participation rate would drop very quickly. And so instead of it being like, read the problem, it would be read the first sentence, then read the second sentence. But I definitely agree with you that if we use the tools that we have, we can replicate a lot of what the kids are used to doing in the classroom. And I think for one of the things that's important to point out is that, there is a lot of negative talk about virtual learning, but I found that there were a lot of positive things as well. And one of those things is, it felt like at times student engagement was actually better for those students that were in the room
Mhm.
than it would have been even in the classroom. Uh,
Yeah.
that was kind of my experience. I think because the kids are tech savvy, the kids know how to interact online. They're already interacting online. Video games. I mean, when we were growing up, video games were like you had to go to somebody's house. I remember I had to go to Chris Varga's house, like 3 blocks away, to play Nintendo. Well, now, if we wanted to play Nintendo together, we had to be at the same house. Well, now all the kids, they're they're all online. They're at their house, but they're
Mhm.
playing with kids. Somebody goes back to Mexico or whatever, they're still playing online together. They're playing Fortnite together.
Yeah.
They probably shouldn't, because it's not for their age level, at least for my kids, but they're playing Grand Theft Auto together and doing all this stuff together. And so they're used to the online environment. I think just as teachers, we have to make sure that we're planning our time accordingly and engaging them. Um, what do you think uh, what was one of the biggest challenges that you faced? What were some of the challenges?
So I have two that I want to discuss. The first being attendance, and that's something that was a campus-wide issue, was getting kids to log on.
Actually
Um,
getting them to log on. Yeah.
so when we think about the root cause for that, I would definitely have to say a lot of it has to do with access to technology. That
Okay.
was a very, very big issue.
And I think it was an issue that even, especially like in the district we teach in, it was recognized. There was a lot of resources invested in trying to, not necessarily
Right.
succeeding, but trying to get internet out to the kids.
Yes, and more now has been allocated by our district. So definitely, applause to them, and way to go getting us the resources for the upcoming school year. Now, again, we talk about people not being familiar, parents, right? Specifically, not being familiar
Right.
with what we're using, right? We as teachers are exposed to these programs every day. We look at them just about every single day. We look at these, we
Right.
know what they are. The transition was not as difficult for us because we've seen this stuff before. Now,
Yeah,
for a
I think
parent
as
who has
well.
never seen it, a parent who has never seen it, obviously is not going to understand. We've actually attended professional development that involved Flipgrid, that involved Google Suite, right? So there, even if it was not our primary go-to tool for teaching, it definitely was something we had exposure to and some experience with prior to just jumping into it, the way that we are asking teachers, parents to do.
Yeah, you bring up a really important point too. I know both of us, we have, we have higher education, we have graduate degrees, and I know just because of, we know each other, our graduate programs have been done online, and
Yes.
most everyone that I know that has done at least graduate work, most everyone I know is doing it online now. Even people that work in a traditional education setting, we're
Right.
doing our continuing education, our higher education online. And so yeah, we're definitely familiar with how the format works.
And
And I
you and
think
I are familiar with elementary education. I'm not familiar with middle school or high
yeah,
school and what frequency they're utilizing technology at, and I'm going to assume because there is one-to-one with our district
right.
that there is a much higher degree of autonomy, right, on the part of the student because they know it and they're older and more mature and more capable of just running with it.
Right, and this, I guess, this is more anecdotal. Um, we'll be planning future conversations, and hopefully, we can have people from higher grades
Yes.
in our conversations. But my niece, she's a senior this year in high school. She'll be a senior, and for her, when all of this happened, it was really a seamless transition because they've got their own devices, all their classes, even though they were in-person classes, they're turning in all the work on a version on Google Classroom or something similar. And
Right.
so, it wasn't a tough transition for them. She actually liked it. She started working 40 hours a week. I mean, she's loving it. She's going to school, working, doing her thing, living her best life. She was enjoying it.
Mhm.
But you know, I think it was a little bit more of a seamless transition for upper grades. Um, I think you bring out a big thing, and that's the autonomy. And I think especially in public education, in K through 12, and especially K through 5, uh, the autonomy I think is a big issue, and I think that's the biggest challenge that we face. Like you said, the technology, but also I think the big driver of the student autonomy is the parent engagement. The parents being involved and getting the parents involved with what the students are doing. And
Right.
one of
It's
the
a requirement for the little ones. Yeah, they
right
need the help.
right because when they're in the classroom, we fulfill a very parental role.
Yeah.
We provide instruction, but we're also, hey, stop, don't kill each other, don't hit each other, don't do this stuff. So we're making sure that there's order in the classroom so that there can be a learning environment. But when they're not in the classroom, our ability to manage their behavior is limited because they're virtual. Uh, we don't have a physical connection to them, and so the parental engagement is very, very important. One gentleman that I talked to the last couple of days on this, and I just want to share his thoughts. His name is let me see, Lazaro Nava. He's also a teacher here in Fort Worth. He When we talked about his greatest challenge, he said what worked best with me was to keep well connected to parents and to help the kids do their work via Zoom or
Recording.
Google Classroom. So he was connected with the parents. And then he also said, what I feel was the biggest challenge was to keep the kids interested in committing to do their best and to get parents to buy into virtual learning. So it's interesting, Mr. Navas' take, and really I think that was my experience also. My biggest success came from getting the parents engaged, getting the parents committed to keeping the kids engaged. And my biggest challenge, that you talked about the attendance problem, the kids that weren't attending, the kids that weren't engaged, I felt that their lack of engagement was due to the parent commitment. And so, just to kind of wrap up our discussion, we don't want to go too long with this because we want people to be able to get it and grab some nuggets, grab some inspiration, perhaps some direction. But let's wrap up with that question. What were some of the things that we did? What were some of the things that you did, Charlie, uh, to get parents engaged? Because that just seems like a really key factor to all of this.
Again, it's education. If a parent is comfortable with an application or a program, they're able to help. There's always 99.9% of the time there's going to be an interest there in helping their child, right?
Correct.
So if they're better equipped, they're able to do so, they will do so. So I feel that educating, when I did invest some effort and time into educating our parents, there was a higher level of engagement and persistence also. When it first went to online learning, there was a lot of no answer. There was a lot of no response to the email. There
Correct.
was, it almost felt like resistance initially, but that persistence paid off, and we, over time, the number increased quite a bit.
It kind of seemed like to me that initially the people were like, "Oh, we're gonna go back," so no
hmm
big deal.
hmm
But then it was like people started figuring out, "Hey, this could go longer than what we knew," and
Right.
so we're going to go ahead and try and get engaged. We've got to push our kids to get engaged, or at least some of the parents were pushing their kids to get.
Right.
And so that's I think that was a big deal. For me, it was just contacting the parents, making sure I was contacting the parents. I know at first I would be on the phone until 8, 9 o'clock at night, working with
Mhm.
parents to get them online, and then working with parents to get them equipment for their kids so that they could get the kids online, and just really being
Right.
engaged in the process. Really,
Yeah.
really,
No, for sure.
yeah, yes. And so I guess to summarize, uh, biggest successes came when we were uh, engaging the students through our technology and getting parents to buy into the process. And then our biggest challenges were the actual internet, getting internet to the kids, and then
Right.
keeping parents bought into engaging their students in the virtual learning process.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Absolutely. It's a good way to sum it up.
Okay. And I guess as far as action items, I would say the response to that is, first of all, teachers have to be engaged. It becomes, it's not an 8-hour job anymore. It never was, but even more so now. We really have to be available beyond normal hours and go above and beyond to be out there and engaging with the students,
Right.
the family.
And
And
it's one last thing I'll throw in.
yeah,
Sorry. One last thing I'll throw in is we need to embrace the change.
right. I
That's
agree.
it. Embrace the change. It's not.
It is what it is.
It's permanent for now.
Right. Right. And so
Indefinitely.
let's engage in it, make the best of it, and let's use it for
Embrace it.
lessons that we can apply when we eventually return to the classroom. And
Right.
so that would be it for this evening. Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you,
right.
Mr.
Have a
Mangrum.
thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, sir.